Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, dear authors and invited guests. Welcome to a technical session 4A. On behalf of ICT IS 2021 and Global Knowledge Research Foundation, it's my great pleasure to welcome you to the 5th International Conference on Information and Communication Technology of Intelligence System through Zoom. We are thankful to everyone who present on this platform to go along with us digitally in these unpredictable circumstances of COVID-19 and making this conference more productive. Also, we wish everyone and their families to a protected time, and we all will together pass this soon. We hope you will enjoy the 2 days of knowledgeful and interactive sessions. Just before we get started, I would like to introduce our session chair, Dr. O.P. Rishi. He's working as an associate professor in the Department of Computer Science and Informatics, University of Kota, also holding the post of Director Research, Director IT, Webmaster, and a Nodal Officer, E-Recruitment and Nodal Research in Nodal Officer, UGC at University of Kota. He has a more than 26 years of experience. His research interests in a code-based reasoning and intelligence system and intelligent tutoring system. He has a more than 85 papers and a book publications in a national and international journals, as well as publications. I welcome you, sir, as a chair of this technical session 4A. Over to you.
Thank you, Risha. Thank you so much. And very good morning to all of you, all the participants within this event. Am I audible to all of you?
Yes, sir, you are audible.
Okay. So first of all, I would like to thank the conference organizers whom given this opportunity to me to session this chair, first of all. And I'm very happy to be a part of this event and chairing this prestigious event as well as this particular session. So thank you so much. As I know, this session includes 7 different papers, and that is all related to the intelligence systems in various areas like health and public administration, or in assistive technologies or assistive systems like that. So within this, first of all, I would like to call the Chat It Loud real-time transcribe app for communication for hearing impaired paper, which is presented by Jansil Shah. So you're welcome, Jansil. Please present your paper.
Yeah, sir. Can I just share my screen once?
Yeah, please.
Is my screen visible?
Yeah.
Yeah. So hello, my name is Jainil Shah, and these are my co-authors Pravar Parekh, Kulin Shah, and Dr. Prasanna Shetty. We propose Chat It Loud, real-time transcribing app for communication for hearing impaired, a mobile application developed as an extension of Text It Loud using Flutter to support Android as well as iOS devices. This application allows hearing impaired people to concurrently communicate with others in real time. Chat It Loud provides real-time speech to text and display messages as it changes as in chat groups. As per 2011 census, persons with disability constitutes of 2.21% of the Indian population. This is around 2.68 crore people. Among the total disability in the country, 19% are with the disability of hearing. Out of the 74,000 PWD students enrolled in the higher education in our country, approximately 14,000 are hearing impaired. We conducted a demo of our app Text It Loud at Roshiram Thadani High School for hearing impaired at Mumbai, where it was presented to more than 30 faculty members. They suggested that there should be a function of two-way communication, and support for multiple languages is crucial for entirely covering the inclusive education of hearing impaired. To incorporate these suggestions, as mentioned above, we developed Chat It Loud as the extension of Text It Loud. This allows hearing impaired people to concurrently communicate with others in real time. According to the feedback and suggestions received for our previous application, we implemented the following features in order to enhance the experience of our users. Some features are inherited from TextItLoud, while others features are novel. First is interactive two-way communication. That is, both the teachers and students can listen as well as speak. Improved user interface, like that is having chat-like interface to easily identify multiple speakers. Next is the minimal requirement of the usage. That is, it is very lightweight application. Next is it is both available for iOS as well as Android. The data has two layers of security, that is password protected and a randomly generated alphanumeric key, which is of length 6, and continuous voice recognition. The implementation focuses on how to utilize the phones, cell phones speech to text technology to facilitate real-time communication using Flutter as an open source software development kit and the speech to text package developed by cdscore.com. We created a mobile application that satisfied both our goals, real-time communication between multiple users and a single code base for Android and iOS applications. We modified the quick, simple and synchronized architecture of TextItLoud so that the mobile application would continue to facilitate the same performance but also allow speakers to send and receive data. ChatItLoud uses Android Speech Recognizer as well as an iOS Speech Recognizer classes for transcribing the speech input. The user interface is as follows. The home screen, which is loaded when the application is opened, includes buttons that redirects to create and join screens. To create a private group, create screen is used, which contains three input fields: a group ID, a name, and a password. Group ID is unique and randomly generated six-letter alphanumeric combination. A username is required so that the others can recognize the user. Password is to provide an extra layer of security. Now the user who has created a group will share the password and the group ID to the other users. The other users will be able to join the group using the join screen. Similar to create, it contains the three text fields. It also contains a drop-down which is used to join as a speaker or a listener. A speaker will be able to speak and communicate with others, while listener will be able to see the chat screen. The messages are visible on a chat screen as shown. The chat screen also contains a button that, when pressed, toggles between listening and non-listening state. Here there is a time limit. This time limit refers to the amount of time the speech-to-text technology will listen to with no audio input. After the time limit is expired, it will automatically stop listening. This is done to reduce the device's battery consumption as the technology is rich and computationally intensive. Here the last message is being received. Here in the figure, last message is being received as a speaker is still speaking on the left screen, while it is completely received on the right screenshot. Along with this, the text also changes based on the content. For example, if you do not correctly pronounce a word, it will initially transcribe it as based on the pronunciation, but at the end, it will likely correct it based on the context of the speech. This paper presented a Flutter application, ChatItLoud, an extension of TextItLoud that allows hearing impaired users to communicate with each other and verbally by converting their speech to text in real time. The app can be used for quick and spontaneous interactions, such as talking with colleagues at work or meeting people in public. It can also be used at events, classrooms, churches, doctor's appointments, meetings, business meetings, and much more. The accuracy of the speech recognition system is about 87 to 90%. Even with a moderate internet connection, data is received by other users under 2 seconds after being spoken. Another similar such application is AVA. AVA is an app designed to empower people who are hard of hearing by allowing them to follow conversations in real time. The app provides real-time captioning with up to 90% to 95% accuracy. On smartphone, AVA allows the users to tap and correct words and teach AVA to transcribe them right. For group conversations where speakers are further away, AVA will show a real-time color-coded transcript of who says what. AVA provides the user with both free and paid options. But the free services does not provide two-way communication. The free option provides free usage up to 5 hours per month, which with an additional 5 hours of usage top up for $499. The premium plan is priced up to $1,499 per month. Live Transcribe is yet another application developed by research at Google to aid the hearing impaired. Since the use case of Live Transcribe is geared for real-time conversations where the speakers are at same location, it only works one-way communication. It does not distinguish between speakers and can only work when the device is in proximity with the speakers. This application does not have a multi-user functionality. Research to support multiple languages and translation from one language to another is already underway. To provide much more support for teaching learning, a specific mode is also planned, which allows transcription to be shown over any screen. Now let's watch the video of our app of how it actually works. Just a second.
Pencil, you are going to present your demo?
Yeah, but I can't actually see the screen there. One second. Can you see the video screen is visible?
Yeah.
Yeah. So here actually we have performed a simulation with 3 people where we keep on speaking from different areas. Like from which this actually is recorded just recently. So we were individual at our home, which is quite far away with each other.
Right.
So if you are speaking, then you will, in your phone, it will be seen as you, whereas for the other person, it will be your name.
Right.
So here we are.
I'm not able to see the video.
Is video visible to everyone?
No, video
yeah.
is not.
No, the file explorer is visible where you can see the list of files.
Okay. One sec. I'm not sure why video is not visible. Where can I present my whole screen? Like I don't want to present just one screen. Where is my whole PC? Is there any way to do this? Okay, let's do it here.
Dear presenter, are you facing any difficulties?
Yeah. Actually, I am unable to share my whole screen. I want to share a video file which is already open, but that screen is not visible for sharing. Like I can only see 3 screens and not the 4th one.
So I can make you co-host. You can try.
Yeah, sure. No, I still can't share the whole.
Jainil,
Yeah.
no issue. If you are facing any issue, you can just share your PPT. Still, if you have any issue, you can just log out from the Zoom and again log in the Zoom within next 1 minute.
Okay, just a second.
Meanwhile, Richa, if there is in next 1 minute, if he is not able to connect, you can move ahead to the next presentation.
Okay.
Wait for the next 35 seconds for the joining.
Oh, yeah, 1 sec. I have just opened it on Chrome. I will just share. Yeah, is it visible now?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, so if you can see the video, here we are actually conducted a simulation with 3 people, me and 2 of my other friends. So when you are speaking, it will appear just as in WhatsApp from the on the left side, and it will be like indexed as you. Whereas if the other people, they will be indexed as their name, respective name.
Dear presenter, you have a last 1 minute. Please conclude your presentation.
Yeah, sure. So I will just conclude while the demo is still on. So basically, in this app, what we have done is present a chat-like interface while using speech-to-text technology to transcribe in real time from any location anywhere in the world using the minimal bandwidth required. So this way, this app can be used in any classroom or any business environment where anyone can attend any meetings, even if they are not physically present. And there is no call option. So all we can, the user can clearly see the chats instead of hearing. Yeah. So this is Chat Loud. Thank you.
Okay. Great work, Jensil. I have a few questions in my mind.
Yeah, sure, sir.
First of all, as your title is, this is for hearing impaired people.
Yeah.
Okay. So how can you justify this paper or this particular work or tool which you have developed? This is for hearing impaired people.
Yeah. So basically, here the people who have difficulty in hearing, they can, or even normal people, they can just speak, whereas these people can clearly read the chats from real time.
Means you want to say then hearing impaired people will speak and automatically that is recognized by the system and that is available on a chat box to other people.
Yes.
Is it so?
Yes, sir. Exactly.
Okay. For this purpose, exactly what algorithm you have used to convert this voice into a text?
Okay. So for this, suppose we have used the phone's inbuilt speech recognizer, speech to text. So the problem with that feature was it was pretty accurate, and as you are using your phone for a very long time, it gets trained to your accent and it will try to recognize it more accurately. But the problem here was it only recognizes for one single unit of time. So basically, if you stop speaking, it used to stop recognizing it. So what we had to do was to repeat that.
Exactly. You are not getting my point. Exactly what algorithms you have applied. Basically, this is the research work. So within that, you have to apply a certain algorithm or a certain things, certain particular tools or techniques to apply your technology. So exactly which algorithms you have used for this conversion of voice signals into a text signals? when I'm hearing impaired people will speak something and that is converted into the text of the screen. So exactly for that purpose, what you have done. Anyways, you said it, chat it loud.
Yeah.
Okay, that means what?
So basically, we can user can speak from one side, and whereas the other people who are unable to hear clearly, they can read the chats.
But that person is hearing impaired.
Yeah. So he
So
can.
how can he listen?
No, this chat thing, actually it does. It's not from speech text to speech. It's just from speech to text. So if I'm speaking, whatever I'm speaking will be converted to a text, and it will be uploaded to the Firebase cloud. And from that cloud, the same text will be appeared to the users or the other group members' device with the same group, and they can just read what I'm speaking in real time.
Means if both the people you want to say, if both the people are hearing impaired, then one person speak and that is converted to in the text and that is visible to the screen of that person, the opposite side. And again, the opposite side people will speak something that is converted into that voice signal converted into the text signals, and that can be read. And by this way, that can be communicated.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Very good. Very good.
Yeah.
So this is a good thing. And now you have evaluated the accuracy of the system. What is the mechanism of calculating the accuracy?
Okay, so the accuracy which we have gotten is not like it's not for what we have achieved. It's like the speech recognizer which we are using is for the offline inbuilt phone, which is already available when you install the Android or iOS system. So that accuracy is what we have considered the accuracy of our.
This is
our
scientific way. This is scientific way to calculate the accuracy.
The accuracy of speech to text, which they actually what we have used the package to actually convert from speech to text, is the accuracy of that package.
Okay, not system.
Yeah, it's the accuracy of that particular package, the SF speech recognizer and the for iOS and the speech recognizer for Android.
Okay, great thing. You have said it, this will support a multiple languages. For that purpose, exactly what technique you have used?
No, this does not support multiple languages yet.
You have mentioned within this system will support a multiple languages within your slides.
Yeah, it's on the future work side, and we are actually working on it right now. We have implemented the multiple languages thing on TextItLoud, our initial app, which we have already completed.
If a person speak in a Bangla that is converted to an English or a Hindi, then what is the mechanism for this conversion of languages? You are working on that?
Yeah, we are actually currently working on that. We are currently actually researching how the Google Translate is working and how if we can use that API or we can achieve that kind of accuracy integrated with our system without delaying the effects of the real-time communication.
Okay, great thing. Thank you.
Okay,
thank you, Jancy.
Thank you.
Sir, I think so. You are muted, Dr. OP Rishi. You can just unmute yourself.
Okay. So now I would like to call another person, that is paper name is Analysis and Prediction of COVID-19 with the image super resolution using CNN and SCRNN based approach. And this paper is presented by Pranav Alok Jain. I would like to invite Pranav Alok Jain.
Yeah, hello, sir.
Yeah. Pranav, is there any difficulty?
No, sir. So is my screen visible?
Yeah, there is a picture is there is one photograph.
No, Purab, you are not sharing your screen. Just share the screen.
Yeah. So is my PPT visible, sir?
Yes, perfect.
Yes.
Full screen and go ahead.
So is it in full screen right now?
Yeah.
Yeah. Hello and good morning to all. I am Purab Alok Jain, the presenter and one of the authors of the paper named Analysis and Prediction of COVID-19 with Image Super Resolution using CNN and SR-CNN based approach. In this presentation, I will be talking about a brief intro to the paper, which includes motivation, dataset, algorithm, result analysis, and the conclusion. In this current era, where technology is rising exponentially, the need for information processing has become vital for some industries. In this information processing, image processing covers a huge chunk because many industries are employing it on a regular basis. To name few industries, there are medical industries, surveillance, satellite photography, and the study of galaxy. From these examples, one can easily come to an idea that image processing has a very huge scope. Now, in the image processing, a technique known as image super resolution is used to convert a low resolution image into a high resolution image. To display what exactly image super resolution does, here is an image of an MRI scan. As you can see in figure A, it is a low resolution X-ray, and if we apply image super resolution on figure A, it converts it into a high resolution image that is shown in figure B. Now the question arises that how to super resolve an image. There are many algorithms which does this, and to name a few, there are super resolution convolution neural network, fast global and local residual learning, deep convolution neural network, deep recursive convolution neural network, and many more. So in this paper, we have employed SRCNN because of its minimalist complexity, a comparable accuracy, and speed. For this paper, we have referred a number of different research papers which have done some work related to image super resolution or image processing or COVID-19 detection. Here is the list of few research papers which are already been published in such domains. All these papers has common research gap that a better quality of an image could have been generated with less computation, or due to an abundance of poor quality data, the results are distorted. So in this paper, we tried to bridge these gaps and came to a solution that not just straightforwardly predict whether the patient has COVID-19 or not, but it will first super resolve the image using SRCNN model, which is a deep learning model, which has the minimalist complexity, and then predicting whether the patient has COVID-19 or not for better and accurate results. So we have used 4 datasets, that is SET5, SET14, COVID chest X-ray dataset, and chest X-ray pneumonia dataset of both COVID positive and normal cases. And here are few of the images respective to the datasets. So this is a high-level diagram which shows the flow, or one can say the working of the model. So what's happening here is, like, for both training and testing phases, distinct datasets are created, named as training and validation, which is further divided into 2, that is COVID and normal. Images are pre-processed, which also includes the conversion of dimensions of the images into RGB, that is 224 cross 224 cross 3, having 3 channels. X-ray and CT scans were filtered to get a front view images to create a separate data set. Now we have used here 2 deep learning algorithm so that our whole image can be like processed at single go, and the 2 are SRCNN model and a convolution neural net. So before going any further, let's discuss what SRCNN model is exactly doing. So for converting a low resolution image to a high resolution image using SRCNN, there are 4 steps. That is pre-processing, which upscales a low resolution image to desired high resolution image. Second is feature extraction, which extracts a set of feature maps from the upscaled low resolution image. Third is nonlinear mapping, which maps the feature maps representing a low resolution to high resolution patches. And the fourth one is reconstruction, where the actual high resolution images is being created. Now, if we go further, the degrading image is present in SET5 and SET14 to train the SRCNN model. So passing these degraded images to train the SRCNN model, which will in turn convert a low resolution image into a high resolution image. Now passing all these converted high resolution images of the X-rays and CT scan, which is done by the SRCNN model, to the convolution neural network to classify whether the patient has COVID-19 or not. Then For training purposes, a total of 457 images are used and 118 images for testing. Different parameters that plays an important role in the model have been hypertuned to get more accurate results. The parameters which are hypertuned are optimizer, the number of epochs, the number of layers, and loss functions. We have used an Adam optimizer and a mean square error loss function to get more accurate results. Now, this given table shows the training and testing accuracies for two different approaches of detecting COVID-19 in a patient. That means the first one is without image super resolution and the second is with image super resolution. Here, the training accuracy reaches to 94.72% without image super resolution, and in with super resolution, it is 96.88. So now, to see how these results reached here, we will see like these graphs. These two graphs are for the for the training model for without image super resolution. So if we look at figure A here, though the testing accuracy reaches to 92.19%, there are many mountains which are being generated. And if we look at figure B, the sudden change of training loss shows the instability of prediction. These are now, if we compare it with the model with image super resolution, these graphs will show a gradual increase in the accuracies when image super resolution is used. So if we look at figure A, here not only the testing accuracy is reaching to 95.31, which is greater than before, but also the graph generated is smooth and no steep pointy mountains are being generated. So from these results, we came to a conclusion that using image super resolution on a data set prior to prediction model yields a better result, and one can verify the statement from the accuracies of both the model presented on the screen. That is 92.19% without image super resolution and 95.31% with image super resolution. These are some reference papers which we have used for our research paper. And thank you so much for your time and listening to me. And if you have any questions, then please do.
Thank you, Pranab. Really good job is done by you and your team in this pandemic situations. And I want to know that you have calculated the accuracy of your system. Then what tool you have used to calculate this accuracy, or how you have calculated, on which platform or which tool you have used?
Yes, sir. So basically, I have applied some machine learning models. So in that, what we are doing is like
which model you have used?
Yes, sir. So in TensorFlow, sir, I have used the libraries.
Yeah, great. TensorFlow. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Now I would like to call next paper, that is Novel Approach to Improve Security Systems. That is presented by Sneha Jain.
Good morning, all. Can I get a confirmation that my screen is visible and I'm audible?
Yeah.
Okay. So warm welcome to all. I am Sneha Jain from PS University, and today I would like to present my work titled Novel Approach to Improve Security Systems. This is a brief outline. Coming to the actual content. This is an IoT-based security system with two-factor authentication through Aadhaar and OTP verification in the AC coaches of trains. It is a reliable solution to ensure a relatively safe, assured, concern-free and a convenient mode of travel, especially for the solo travelers, single women, elderly passengers, and children. So this solution not only ensures reserved and identified passengers that are granted entry and exit permissions. Now, how will it be achieved? By validating tickets through each QR and cross-verifying the Aadhaar QR code that is scanned at the time of booking to grant the permission in and out of the compartments. Now, need finding. Why do I even need a new solution? This is because due to the unauthorized and unchecked entry into the AC compartments, there is a constant threat on life and property. We need some protection against robbery at knife point, armed looting, or even unnoticed theft. In the existing AC coaches, there is no such automated checking system to validate the entry of people. It is only at the time of journey that the PTA manually does the checking. The presence of CCTV cameras are also helpful only at the time of investigation, after the crime is committed, while the aim is to prevent the crime from happening at the first place. Now, the prototype system that I've implemented, the entire system is divided in 3 main stages. First, ticket booking with original Aadhaar QR code scanner. Second, ticket and Aadhaar verification. Third, authenticated entry and exit system. The software I used was on Android application with Firebase database. The hardware involves a Node MCU, some LEDs, buzzers, and IR sensors. The QR code involves are 2 types. First, e-ticket QR. This acts as the primary QR code. Second is Aadhaar QR code, which is the secondary QR code. Primary QR code is emailed on completion of ticket booking. So why do I need this? This is to confirm that the original and the reserved passengers are only traveling. It needs one-time scan and OTP verification. Secondary QR code is for the authenticated security system. So once e-ticket is validated, all the passengers booked under this e-ticket can enter and exit compartment anytime using their personal Aadhaar QR. Coming to the activity flow, as I mentioned earlier, stage 1 is ticket booking. Here, passenger identification is done. So first, in the reservation portal, the passenger details are entered and scanned the Aadhaar QR. If the inputs are consistent and valid, we move ahead with the confirmation, where we generate the ticket and the ticket QR, and the same is mailed to the mail ID. Next, stage 2 and 3 are clubbed into this: boarding, passenger verification, and authentication. So first, the passenger scans the ticket QR code. This automatically generates the OTP. On receiving of OTP, when you enter it, we check if it is a one. If yes, then the white LED glows, indicating that yes, the OTP verification is successful and now the ticket is unlocked. So the passengers booked under this ticket can scan the personal QR code. When they do that, the green LED glows. In a normal state, we would allow a single passenger per scan and the door would unlock. When the passenger moves inside, the IR sensors detect it and the blue LED glows. But what if multiple passengers try to rush into one valid scan? That would be the intrusion state, and we need to raise alert. This is done through red LED glowing and the alarm being raised. In case there is some mishap or some accident happening, the passenger can press the emergency button and all the doors would be unlocked and the officials would be informed. These are the outcomes that I have received on the prototype model. So case 1 is valid ticket QR scan, then OTP verified. This would trigger the white LED. These LEDs are just like a user feedback, so as to know that, yeah, something is happening. Next, case 2, passenger Aadhaar validation. That would trigger the green LED. Both the IR sensors detect the person and glow the blue LED. This is case of entering inside the compartment. Next, case 3. Multiple entry detection triggers alarm beep and red LED. Case 4 is emergency exit in case of accidents. So with this, the presented methodology, if it is followed, we can obtain a highly safe and feasible security system that would be linked with Aadhaar. The passenger identification, authentication, and verification would be done during booking and boarding. There would be complete elimination of middle agents and possible shutdown of black market. This would lift up the travel experience in the Indian Railways with assured protection. And hence, we would get safe and secure journey for passengers and their belongings. So that is about it. Thank you.
Okay, Sneha.
Yes, sir.
Sneha, thank you for your paper. Really, you have done a great job. But I have a few questions in my mind.
Yes,
First
sir.
of all, what about your title of your paper? You are talking about a novel approach to improve security system. Security system of what? That is not justified by the title. I think you are talking about the travelers' security systems
Yes,
when they are
sir.
in travel. When they are in travel. So
Yes, sir.
I think that title should be something like that. So
Okay.
traveler security system that will specify automatically exactly what on which topic you have worked. Anyway, I have one question. Let us suppose there is a fraud or a fake Aadhaar. In that case, how you have to verify this Aadhaar verification?
Right, sir. So when I speak about while booking, we are scanning the Aadhaar QR code. So what happens is that I have checked it myself that when take of laminated Aadhaar card, and you try to scan it, the QR code does not reveal any kind of information. So the booking will not be successful. Secondly, when you're going through actual official or government registered travel agents, so they should be provided with the STQC scanner. So that actually validates with the original database in the government that this person's identity is valid or not. So that way we will get to know if he is providing the correct identification.
Okay. You haven't accessed the Aadhaar database for verification?
No, sir, it would not be right for our project purposes to access government database. That is why I've used a sample Aadhaar card.
Okay. Thank you so much. Now
You,
I would like to invite thank you so much, Sneha. Now I would like to invite next paper, that is a smart UAV framework for multi-assistance. And this paper will be presented by Vaishnavi Patel. Vaishnavi, welcome. Vaishnavi.
Dear sir, I think Vaishnavi is not there. So could you please announce the next presenter name?
Okay. Now I would like to invite another paper, that is a next generation 5G wireless technologies in healthcare. And this paper will be presented by Apurv Gupta. I welcome Apurv. Apurv, are you there? Apurv. Apurv joined the meeting or not?
Sir, Apur has joined, but I think
might be possible there is some technical problem. So can we take after next paper?
no, sir, please, sir, wait 1 minute.
Okay.
Sir, I think has some technical problem, so we can announce our next presentation.
Okay. So now I would like to call next presenter, that is underwater robotics, and this paper will be presented by Mridang Pandya. Mridang Pandya is there?
Sir, I think he is also absent, and Vaishnavi Patil is there, so we can announce Vaishnavi
Yeah.
Patil's presentation.
Okay. So again, I would like to call or invite an next paper, that is a Smart UAV Framework for Multi-Assistant. And this paper will be presented by Vaishnavi Patil. Vaishnavi, are you there? Please present your paper.
Yes, sir, sure. Okay, so is my slide visible?
Yeah.
Yeah. So hello everyone. My name is Vaishnavi Patil, student from AP Shah Institute of Technology. My paper ID is 167, and the paper topic which I'm going to talk about is Smart UAV Framework for Multi-Assistance. So this is going to be the outline of the topics which we are going to discuss in the further slides, which will include abstract introduction, statement and objective, proposed system architecture, working, system functionalities, conclusion, and future scope. Drone being an intelligent machine used in various sectors like military and national emergency. Our motive in this project is to present the real-time possibilities and which would be practical even which make use of UAVs in rescue operations like transport of essential goods on demand, locate people stuck during the floods, analyze the scale of damages, monitor large-scale performance inspection activities, human gathering, delivery of food and other necessary materials, support rescue operations, and for other such emergency transport activities. So, considering the efficiency of the drone and pairing it with the technology with ML, along with the AI and the art of UAVs, drone allow ground level operators an overview of entire area. Drones for security. Drones can be used for resolving various public and personal operations also. That could be security camera, and for medical reasons brings about numerous changes in the advantages. So the main objective of our project here is to monitor the high-risk places by real-time analysis of the crowd gathered in a particular area and give them the relevant instructions to with the help of fitted camera. Also, besides the monitoring thing, the drone would be capable of spraying the disinfectant in the particular area. This would definitely reduce the human efforts and at the same time keep the human operators out of harm. Also, it would help to make people aware about the current situation and also disinfecting the area. The real-time analysis and the data would be stored in the cloud and which can be accessed later when necessary. And this is the proposed system architecture. Here the drone would, we have used the drone which would have Arduino as the core component, and all the other components are interfaced with the Arduino. The plan is to make the drone from scratch and then integrate it with the machine learning and filter out the results, and depending upon the results would make the necessary actions. So this Arduino would be coupled with the DC motors, propellers, the RC controller, and the IP camera. The output of the camera would be then sent to the cloud, from where one can locally monitor the area. The output would also be applied to machine learning algorithm, where the human detection part comes into the picture. If the humans are detected in the frame, then the necessary announcement would be done giving the relevant instruction to the crowd to not to gather in that particular area. Or likewise, in case there are no humans detected in the area, then the drone would spray the disinfectant and cover a large area to disinfectant the area. So yes, this would be the components which would be required for making the system. And for controlling purpose, one can use either the RC controller, transceiver and receiver, or can make the controlling system with the help of Bluetooth module, which could be controlled via phone with the help of Blink app or any other such apps. So this would be the functionalities which the system would provide, like human, specifically detecting the humans in a particular area, monitoring the human in the crowd in that area, which would give us the real-time GPS location also, and spraying the disinfectant over the area. So concluding the project, the UAVs can provide the best and quick possible medical attention to all the needy people over a specific region with optimizing for time and cost efficiency. Drones can also be used as function for surveillance and counting a crowd in a specific location, which can be treated as future advancement of our UAV. Also, drones can be made more efficient by increasing its weight capacity, which can be then also used for emergency delivery system in remote regions as to bring healthcare at convenience. The change in direction of wind flow, increase in distance between the controller and the drone, or any other environmental changes like heavy rain, fog can limit the efficiency of the product of the proposed UAV. So these are the references which I have used. And yeah, thank you. That's about it.
Thank you, Vaishnavi. You and your team has done a great job on this smart UAV framework for multi-assistant. But you have done a great job, but I have a few questions in my mind that which technology you have used for your system, like a Bluetooth technology or a IoT, which one?
So there can be option of using either. You can use the Bluetooth. We are still coming up with the solution how to make use of Bluetooth.
Basically within a Bluetooth there are a certain limitations. So,
yes, the range for controlling the drone, which is not feasible actually. But the most reliable technology would be the RC controller itself, or
what are the limitations of RC controller?
Limitations is the range, like it limits to the range between the controller and the drone.
Is it possible to move on IoT?
Move as in IoT? I didn't get the question.
Or can we use IoT for this particular scenario?
Yes, but it won't be that reliable then, because it would then limit the range for controlling.
Great. Okay, you have for detecting the human, you are using a certain machine learning algorithms.
Yes.
So I want to know which algorithm you are using for detecting these kind of objects, like a human or something else.
Yes, right.
As an object.
Yeah, I missed that point. So there we are going to use the YOLO algorithm for detecting the objects, and there we have used the pre-trained data set called COCO data set, which would detect the humans particularly and filter out the other objects in the frame. It will capture the frames from the video stream and give the output as the count of the humans present in the particular frame. And
what are the advantage of YOLO over other algorithms?
It is fast as compared to other, means the frames per second value is fast as compared to the other algorithms that we have started.
Okay.
So, and
Okay, thank you so much, Vaishnavi. for your great work. Okay. Now I would like to call again Apurv Gupta for his work, that is next generation 5G wireless technologies in healthcare. Is there, Apurv is there?
Yes, sir. I'm here.
Yeah. Now please present your work.
Yes, sir. So I hope I am audible and my screen is visible.
Yeah.
Okay. So good morning, sir. I'm Apurv Gupta, and this work is being jointly done by me under the guidance of my faculty mentor, Dr. Yasha Hasija, at Department of Biotechnology at Delhi Technological University, formerly Delhi College of Engineering. So, sir, the work primarily deals with the next generation 5G technologies in healthcare. The work is a review work to basically understand that with upcoming advancements in the 5G sector, and with higher throughputs coming in from the communications industry, what all benefits we as a healthcare experts and people who are actually working in the advancement of public health can nurture out and can reduce. So, sir, first of all, coming to the advantages of 5G in general, irrespective of the domain where it can be implemented. These are some of these very important listed advantages, that it is very energy efficient and along with the efficiency of spectrum. So if we'll come up with a 5G technology related work, it will give me 100 times energy efficiency and 3 times more the spectrum efficiency. And the very high mobility, that is up to 5,000 kilometers per hour. Again, something which is not there in the initial lines of communication that we are using. These advantages are, they have basically our paper basically deduced these advantages from the implementation from the reports by ITU, that is International Technological Union. And then peak speed, which is, we all know that we guys right now dealing with, that peak speed can reach up to 10 Gbps, 10 gigabytes per second, and with more precise implementation, it can be reached to 20 Gbps too. So, sir, this is a major highlight of what all challenges that we are facing right now in our healthcare regimes. So, in context to the pandemic that we are dealing with, which has forced us, all of us, to just glued to our screens, and we are doing this conference too in an online mode. We have these certain shortcomings. We have manpower related shortcomings because we don't have that strength, the number of people who are trained medicinal practitioners, not limited to doctors, but the paramedic staff, the nurses, the people who have pharmaceutical knowledge. We have shortage of them. At the same time, the distribution is very random, because we have metropolitans where we have a lot of doctors, and then we have rural areas where we don't even have a basic health practitioner. So and just to maintain the equity in the disposal of healthcare services, government has to appoint people in Anganwadis who are not actually the trained people in medical sector, but they are just the educated people who are basically responsible for disposal of medical services. Then there are therapeutic barriers. Therapeutic barriers, our paper basically deals with the pandemic and how precision medicine with better implementation of 5G networks can revolutionize the therapeutic levels. At the same time, it deals with a very, as we all know, that a lot of scientists and organizations are speculating of an antibiotic resistance will come in by 2030, wherein all the antibiotics that we use to cure infections right now will stop working, because each and every organism after the advent of the antibiotics has developed a sort of resistance to them. And then there are certain diagnostic shortcomings which are primarily not related to the cases wherein the person is in direct touch with the medical practitioner, but it happens in case of when you talk about in rural areas or the remote areas wherein if injury happens or you need a sort of a scan, you even if you have a scan reports, you don't have the required the person who have the required skill set to basically deduce it what efficient diagnosis means. At the same time, when we come to metropolitan areas, the doctors are well trained enough even to diagnose a lot of diseases and manifestations by just a simple consultation purpose, which at the same time a remote practitioner cannot do. So
Apurv,
again,
Apurv,
yes sir.
Apurv, can you come to your work?
Yes sir, I'm just coming. I'm just coming. Then sir, there are logistical shortening that we don't have the required setup to basically come up with the efficient disposal of health services everywhere, and then there are economic shortcomings that governments at the same time follow. So what we did, the work initially, we were trying to come up with a lot of if you'll see the paper deals with a lot of statistical aspects of the initial work too. And then there are these are certain fringe benefits. Fringe benefits are the if we're able to overlap all the shortcomings that I highlighted initially, we can come up with such technologies too, which is a 5G cognitive system, a very efficient system wherein we can basically even discuss and cure the psychological disorders, which a lot of people think cannot be diagnosed until and unless you consult a psychiatrist in physical. But this 5G cognitive system is a very good implementation. It is in a research phase, and an efficient implementation clubbed with 5G technology will bring in a lot of change. Then there is wireless telesurgery. Wireless telesurgery basically works on a very good concept of haptic feedback. So what haptic feedback is, so if I have a apparatus which I'll on which if I'll perform some sort of action, and I see and a person who is like very far away from me is connected to me with that haptic feedback, the person at the same time can feel the sensation of the action that I did. So basically, wireless telesurgery, what it does is, if a practitioner is in a metropolitan city and he has to conduct a surgery in remote area, then it requires a lot of robotic structure, which is along the point over here is to reduce the latency. Or
Dear presenter, you have a last 1 minute. Please conclude your presentation.
Okay, ma'am. So these are again the listed advantages. We have tactile internet, which is again the basic source of internet that will help us in getting those haptic feedbacks. Then we have big data analytics over cloud, because we, time by time we are increasing our capacity to store data, which will become crucial in implementation of 5G related healthcare policies. And then there are mHealth related solutions, which are basically mobile health solutions, wherein we can come up with a lot of implementations related to the precision medicine and personalized healthcare. Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you, Apurv. You have performed a very good study on next generation 5G wireless technologies in healthcare. My only one question is that for wireless telesurgery, which you have mentioned in your presentation, within that, which intelligent module is required?
Sir, sir, actually your voice is not audible.
What I'm asking which intelligent module is required for wireless telesurgery?
Sir, wait, I'm just changing my network. I guess I'm having some bandwidth issues.
Yeah. Should I continue or move to the next? Apur, are you there?
Sir, yes. Basically, sir, I guess your question was about what technology is being used in wireless telesurgery.
Yeah, which intelligent module is required? There is a certain module which is required for intelligent telesurgery or wireless telesurgery. In even we can say remote telesurgery or remote surgery like that. So what module name is that?
Sir, basically in our paper, it deals with mobile edge computing. So
Okay.
there
You
might
haven't
be
gone through. You haven't gone through with these technologies for telesurgery.
Sir, we were dealing with the implementation part of the healthcare because we are not the people of electronics engineering or basically I am a biotech person. So we were more focused on the implementation of these applications for the benefit of the healthcare rather than the technical aspect of the particular technology.
Okay. Great. Thank you. Thank you so much. Now I would like to invite Mridang Pandya for his paper Underwater Robotics. Mridang, are you there? Mridang, are you there?
So Mridang has some network issues, so we can call our next
take next time. Now I would like to call Dr. C. Padmaja for his paper forecasting of COVID-19 using hybrid ARIMA FB PopSet algorithms. So please, Padmaja, present your paper.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Sir, is my screen is visible?
Yeah.
Right. So today I'm going to present the forecasting of COVID-19 using the hybrid ARIMA FB Prophet algorithm. Myself, I'm Dr. C. Padmaja, working as Assistant Professor in GNETS, Hyderabad. So this is the outline of today's discussion. That I'll start with the introduction, literature survey, types of forecasting approaches available in the worldwide, and what is the proposed hybrid model among the addition of 2 more forecasting approaches. Then the performance metrics, what we considered in our present analysis, and concluded with the simulation results and the references. So before going to this time series approaches, so I would like to tell about this COVID-19 pandemic, so which is the ongoing pandemic situation, which is caused worldwide socio-economic unrest. And the forecasting so in order to forecast what is the future events and how the future will be when the particular outbreak will hit its peak, and to analyze all this, so the government is introducing the extreme measures to reduce the spread over the worldwide. So one among the extreme measures, we'll call it as a forecasting approach. So there is another acronym for this, another synonym for this forecasting is a prediction. So prediction is nothing but if some data is unknown or we don't have any knowledge about that, then we have to take care of this prediction, and the subclass of that prediction is the forecasting. So the advantage of this forecasting analysis is it alerts what is the future challenges, and based on that we can take some predictive measures, and also it gives us the confidence level to take some important decisions based on the health matters of all the persons worldwide, and it helps in the handling of uncertainty efficiency. So before that, the literature survey is, we know that the COVID-19, it's not a new symptoms arises recently, but it starts since 1919th year as a swine flu. And I've given this list of the various flus started from 1990 to the rename for that in the present year. We'll call it as a COVID-19 because it started in the year of 2019. We'll call it as a COVID-19. Right, and this is about the list of the various flus across the worldwide. So, and we know that COVID-19 is nothing but it is a corona. It is originated from SARS-CoV-2, which is the senior acute respiratory system. And if you want to analyze this particular COVID-19, we need to use some extreme measures. One of that extreme measure is the time series model, and this is one of the forecasting area where we can focuses on the particular data measuring or data generating process in which we don't have any knowledge at all about the future cases. So in that, how this particular time series models will come into picture is it analyzes the past observations, and based on that it will give the set of decision matrix to analyze what about the future number of cases, confirmed cases, or future based on that particular how many will be recovered based on the past analysis. And it is used, so basically it is used to predict the future values based on the past observations. So over the last decades there are a lot of effort done by the previous researchers among this, but there are some approaches in the past, that is we'll call it as a ARIMA, Holt-Winters additive model, TWAT, DPAR, NBITS, and recently the upcoming time series approaches, Facebook, Prophet. FB is nothing but it is created by a Facebook, and the particular algorithm name is Prophet. So this is a time series approach. So among these 6 approaches, so this approach will give the particular analysis day wise or monthly wise or yearly wise. So the proposed model combines this ARIMA and FB Prophet as a proposed model. And the application of this is, as I said earlier, it is used to predict the future COVID-19 outbreaks, and it is used to investigate the role of climate factors. Based on that, it will estimate the daily how many number of confirmed cases are existing in that. So for this analysis, I have taken this available data sets, which is from Kaggle.com. There are 2 data sets, the novel coronavirus 2020 data set, or we can also take it as population by country wise data set. So these 2 are available in GitHub repository. So I have taken the first one for my analysis of this particular pandemic situation, and it gives the particular data sets is a .csv file which gives the number of confirmed cases in that particular country, and how many recovered patients are there, and how many are in death toll value it will give. So if from this we can able to get how many are the number of active cases by subtracting recovered and death from the confirmed cases. So this is my proposed model. We'll call it as ARIMA FB Prophet hybrid model. So for this analysis, I've utilized the software Python. So where I'm getting all these libraries by installing the pip install. So then I have taken this data from the GitHub. So then I want to group it from the country wise. Then I want to filter out how many are the confirmed cases. So then with respect to the date wise, then I'm applying this ARIMA FB to know the time series analysis. And for this, I'm utilizing 3 metrics. That is, one is we'll call it as mean average error, the other one is mean percentage error, and the other one is root mean square. So these are the 3 performance metrics I'm using in my proposed model. Well, based on that, the particular results we got it from the from this is this is the distribution of the cumulative confirmed COVID-19 cases per country till the 4th May of the 2020.
Dear presenter, you have a last 1 minute. Please conclude your presentation.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. So this is the figure for how many number of active cases are there on a logarithmic scale. So from starting from the February until today. So these are the different country-wise active number of cases. Active number of cases can be we are getting from subtracting from the confirmed cases with respect to how many are the recovered cases. So based on that, we'll get the active cases, and similarly we can get the total population per the country based on that linear scale. How many with respect to percentage wise, we can calculate how many are the active cases in the worldwide. And this is the model performance, and so this is a list we got we can get from this RMS root mean square metric, and this is finally we compared with the predicted versus the actual forecast of the COVID-19. So this will give every 15 days revision, and we can predict for 15 days, for the next 15 days how many number of cases will be there. So based on that, the government can take the predictive measures, and with that particular knowledge, so we can substantially reduce the impact of this such a pandemic, and also we can enable the government to modify the social and health related policies ahead of time. So with this, I want to conclude, and these are the references I've taken from the WHO, that is World Health Organization dashboard.
Thank you so much, Dr.
Thank you,
Padmaja,
yes, sir. Thank
for
you.
your wonderful mathematical modeling for COVID-19.
Yes.
You have done a great job. You are using the time series approach for calculating or predicting about the COVID situations. So, should I ask one questions to you?
Yes, sir.
Is there any answer for that, when it will complete or when it will end, this COVID situations? Have you gone through this?
No, sir. So based on this, we can predict it. What is the next 15 days future of 15 days? How many active cases will come into picture? That can be done with this MI algorithm, machine learning algorithm.
Have you taken a data set for from Indian government for this COVID
Yes,
situation?
sir. Yes, sir. Yes,
okay.
I've
You have
analyzed
applied.
this.
You have analyzed.
State-wise also.
Okay. After that, what you have find out? What will be the situation in May, or what will be the situation in June?
So right now I considered only for the next 15 days, but I cannot take for the after a month. I cannot predict. So 15 days.
When it will be peak, when it will be in peak, or when it will be finished. You haven't calculated this?
When it will be finished cannot be calculated. But during the next 15 days, on which date it is might be peak, we can calculate using these algorithms.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Padmaja. This is very relevant to relevant paper in the current situations. And
yes, sir.
Thank you for your presentation and the paper. Okay.
Thank you so much, sir.
Okay.
Thank you.
Now, I would like to call the last paper, that is again Mridang Pandya, for the paper Underwater Robotics. Mridang Pandya.
Am I audible, sir?
Yeah, please.
Okay, just a minute.
Dear presenter, could you please hurry up? We have a limited time. So please start the presentation.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. Okay, so is my screen is visible?
Yeah, please continue.
Okay, so as far as this particular presentation is basically on underwater robotics, right? And the authors are Arpit Gothi, myself, Mridang Pandya, and Priyanka Patel. All right. And in this particular presentation, I am going to cover some of the introduction of underwater robotics, Then we have some of the application of underwater robotics, then challenges regarding the same, and what could be the body structure of underwater robot, right? The technology that we can incorporate for the analysis purpose, right? And what some of the add-ons that we can add into the robot functionality, and by which we can have lots of research exposure, right? And at the end, future scope, right? So let me start with the introduction first. So this is basically nowadays lots of automation techniques are there, but a very less innovation basically done into the underwater robotics, right? So this is our try and explore the underwater robotics part, and we have surveyed a lot of thing and try to design a such a approach or architecture that by which we can have a uh, good durability of underwater robots, right? So that is basically due to this innovation, humans can discover in new areas of underseas where they are not able to go, right? So basically, human cannot reach to the underneath of the underwater or seas, right? So through instead of that, can we send the robot, right? So that's the thing, right? So if yes, then how we can create that robot or technology, right? Basically, all right. So for underwater robotics, the applications that we can utilize is like we have to make such a robot by which that can improve the performance and efficiency of water pollution analysis, right? So what is the ultimate goal is through the robot we have to measure the water pollution basically, right? And the analysis uh, aquatic species, right? So that is another application area, right? Then underwater pipelining companies for detection of oil leakage and health of the pipeline basically, right? Like ONGC and all, how they are measuring that health of the pipelining, right? So they are right now they are having a some external report kind of thing, but instead of that, can we send a robot and that will check the all the scenarios of pipeline, and if that particular problem is solvable without human effort, so that robot can also solve that particular thing. That is the again a good application, right? So these are the application areas of underwater robotics. Apart from that, we can incorporate the finding out the different species available into the underseas, right? Like there are very rare fishes available, or rare fishes we can find at specific areas of seas, right? So can we identify that thing or not, right? So that's the again a big market for that. Yeah, so this is all about the applications. Then challenges that we can face during the implementation of the underwater robot. First is pressure, right? So as we know, when we go into the deep of the uh, sea, the pressure of water is increasing uh, increasing in a very heavy way, right? So how to handle that pressure, how our robot can handle that pressure, right? So that's the challenge. Then to make our robot 100% water resistance, right? That is again challenge. The buoyancy control system, how can have a stable movie, right?
Dear presenter, you have a
Then,
last.
yeah.
Dear presenter, you have last 1 minute. Please conclude your
Okay.
presentation.
Okay. Then the again challenge, most important challenge is communication part, right? Uh, so if we discuss the body structure of the thing, so here I have presented left hand side, the propeller system is there, right? So through this propeller system, we can have a 6-dimensional motions for the robot, right? So the center part is a Bluetooth channel. This is Arduino, and this is a remote viewer, right? Okay. So this is the basic body structure. The mainly the processing part, we have used that Arduino board for the connection purpose we have used Arduino board and the Raspberry Pi for the calculation. If we have we can incorporate the Jetson Nano part also into the instead of a Raspberry Pi for the basic calculation, right? But it is having a somewhat cost effective. That's why we have used that Raspberry Pi here, right? This is the basic signal flow. Through our app we can send the signal, that Bluetooth device SC05 can send the data or motion signal to the Arduino board, and accordingly that motor will these 3 propeller can operate, right? And here in externally we can add a approximately distance sensor, right? So it is that will guide our robot uh, to move in a safe place, right?
Please conclude your paper.
Yeah, of course. So sensors that we can use, that DO sensor, PS sensor, chemical sensor, pressure sensor. The most important sensor is DO sensor that will help to analyze oxygen, like some of the extra hand kind of thing that can pick the object from sea, right? So that add-on we can add. And the future scope, basically we can have a communication part, bi-directional link, that by which we can have a live data streaming kind of thing, like video stream, high fidelity real-time data, right? So this is the survey done by us related to underwater robot.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for your presentation.
Okay.
I would like to ask certain questions to you.
Yeah.
What is that? You have nomenclatured as a underwater robotics.
Yes.
How it is differentiate? Can you differentiate with the robotics and underwater robotics in terms of a mechanic? What are the mechanism of underwater or something like that? And technology wise, how that is we can differentiate it, or functionality wise, how can we differentiate it? Can you answer within 30 seconds?
Yes, sir. Basically, the difference between underwater is basically we required a water resistant part, and the challenges that I have
But
covered.
basically, that is the robotics, no? Functionality wise, technology wise, mechanism wise, that is a robotics.
Yes.
Only.
Yeah. Yes, sir. Please.
Yeah. Thank you for your presentation and wonderful answers. Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Yeah. So in the conclusion part, thank you so much, all of the presenters. All are wonderful presenter. They have done a wonderful work and presented a paper. And I understand what I understand about the intelligence system are exactly the system which has certain abilities of a system which conclude or something, some reasons, perceive relationship or analogies to learn from experience, from the human experience, from the environmental experience, a system which learn or store and retrieve information from the memory, or solve problems, comprehend complex ideas, use natural language, and classify, that will classify the system, generalize the system, and adapt to new situations like a COVID situations. So these are the things related to intelligence systems. All the presenters have presented in a very wonderful way. and very relevant in area. And I had certain suggestions for the paper presenter as well as the author and as well as their mentors. As I understand, this is my only suggestions or this is my view. As and when we select the title that will help the society, the paper that will use for the society, their outcomes will be useful for the society. So we have to select such a way the title at the area of research, and that will be helpful for the society. So anyways, thank you so much. Now over to you, Richa.
Thank you so much. I sincerely thank our authors and their excellent presentation for and contribution in this session. And I also thanks all participants for being a part of this online conference. And this session is informative enough. All the presenters would be getting their digital certificate within 2 working days through email. Further, all the papers have already forwarded to the stranger. The publication will be live within 5 to 6 months. Please kindly cooperate with the team of ICT IS 2021. I also thank our session chair for chairing this session. I request to my team to display the certificate. So this is a token of appreciation of the chair on the behalf of team ICT IS 2021 and the Global Knowledge of Research Foundation.
Thank you.
And before the end, I would like to request to everyone, please turn on the camera and take a quick snapshot for this virtual conference. I request to everyone, please turn on their cameras, so we can make this conference so memorable. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Stay safe and take care, everyone.